The branded human, the night was cold, though cold was nothing new for him. For years his body had been used not for labor, not for dignity, but for warmth. The aliens called it service. Humans whispered another word in the shadows, slavery. They gave humans a cruel name, a name filled with shame. Bed warmers, nothing more than living blankets for the comfort of alien masters. He remembered the day it began. The long line of captured humans, chains around their necks, their wrists, their ankles, the smell of smoke, metal, and despair. The air tasted of fear. Everyone was silent because silence was safer. Speaking meant pain. Hope had no voice in those days. When his turn came, he was forced down onto the iron floor. 2 alien guards held him tight. Another alien stepped forward, carrying a glowing rod. On its tip was the mark of ownership, a brand of fire. He wanted to scream. He wanted to fight. But he had seen others try. He had seen how quickly the whips came down, how fast the electric rod silenced even the strongest men. His heart pounded, his throat locked, and he shut his eyes. The rod pressed against his skin. A sound like meat sizzling filled the air. The pain burned deep, into his body and into his soul. He would never forget the smell of his own flesh burning, nor the cruel laughter of the aliens around him. That day he was no longer a free man. He was property, a tool, a thing. They gave him a number instead of a name. But the worst was not the chains, not the brand, not the orders. The worst was how the aliens looked at him, like he was less than an animal, less than an insect, just heat for their cold nights. Every evening, he was led into a chamber of marble and steel. The alien master would stretch across a wide bed. He would be ordered to lie still, pressed against the creature's cold body, like a breathing furnace. No words, no freedom, no dignity. And when morning came, he was dismissed like trash. A machine could have done his work, but they wanted more than warmth. They wanted humiliation. They wanted to remind humans that they were broken. Years passed like this, one long night after another. Time blurred into a haze of pain and silence. The humans around him, men, women, even children, learned to keep their heads down. They learned to survive, but surviving was not living. He often thought of Earth. He tried to remember the warm sun, the smell of soil, the sound of laughter. But each year the memories grew weaker, like smoke drifting away in the wind. Sometimes when he closed his eyes, he wondered if Earth had ever been real at all. But the brand on his skin was real. The chains on his wrists were real. The cold, alien laughter was real. One night, as he lay in silence, he overheard 2 guards speaking. They were careless, arrogant, for they thought humans could not understand their language. But he understood, and their words made his blood run colder than the night. "There will be more shipments soon," one guard said. "New humans, fresh, runs. The Empire wants more." He closed his eyes tighter. More humans would come. More chains, more brands, more years stolen. His chest ached, his breath came heavy. It felt like a weight pressing down on him. He wondered if this was the fate of humanity forever, to be nothing but tools for alien masters. He wanted to scream, to fight, but his voice had been buried long ago. Yet something inside him refused to fully die. A small ember still burned. It was weak, hidden under years of ashes. But it was there, a thought he could never kill. What, if one day someone fought back? That night, as the cold wrapped around him, he stared at the walls of the alien chamber. He imagined them cracking, breaking. He imagined chains snapping, fire spreading. He imagined a day when humans would no longer lie down in silence. And then, the next morning, everything changed. The new shipment arrived. Humans were dragged in, their faces pale, their eyes wide with fear. Some cried, some looked empty already, broken before their first night. But one man was different. He walked in chains, yes, but his head was not bowed. His eyes were not dim. He looked straight at the guards with a fire that no brand could burn out. His steps were heavy, but not with fear, with defiance. The branded human watched from the shadows. His heart thumped. For the first time in years, he felt something strange, something dangerous. Hope. The guards laughed. Another weak human, one sneered. He will learn. But the branded human was not so sure. The way this new man looked, the way his jaw was set, the way his silence held strength, not fear. It was different. As chains clattered and orders were shouted, the branded human whispered to himself, "This one will not break." And deep in his chest, the ember grew warmer. The human who refused, the alien guards expected the new human to bow, to tremble, to fall into silence like all the others. That was the way it always happened. They broke humans with fire, with whips, with fear. But this man was different. His chains rattled, yet his eyes did not lower. He stood tall, even though iron cuffs bit into his wrists. His face was tired, scarred from old battles, but his jaw was set like stone. Every movement spoke of defiance. He was a man who had known pain before, yet pain had not crushed him. The branded human, silent for years, watched from the shadows. Something stirred in his chest. It was dangerous to feel anything in this place, but he could not help it. This man was not like them. The guards shoved the new prisoner forward, laughing. "On your knees, human," one ordered, his voice sharp. The man did not move. The guard struck him across the face. Blood trickled from his lip, but he stayed on his feet. His eyes locked on the guard like steel. "I will never kneel," he said softly. The room froze. Even the branded slaves around him sucked in a sharp breath. Humans never spoke. Not here. Not in chains. The sound of his voice cut through the silence like a blade. The guards laughed again, but unease flickered in. Their alien eyes, they struck him harder. He fell to his knees under the blow, but instead of bowing, he spat blood on the floor. Slowly, painfully, he rose again. The branded human's heart pounded. He could not believe what he was seeing. No one dared to resist. No one dared to speak. But this man, this stranger, was refusing to be broken. The guards grew angry. They shocked him with electric rods. His body shook, his muscles spasmed, but he bit down on the pain. He did not scream. Instead, through clenched teeth, he whispered, "This will end. You cannot break us forever." Those words spread like wildfire in the room. The branded slaves heard them, and for the first time, they saw something more than chains. They saw defiance. The aliens dragged the man away to the punishment chamber. Everyone expected his cries to echo through the halls as always. But the night remained strangely quiet. The guards returned later with sneers on their faces, but their eyes looked unsettled. The man had survived. Whispers began to flow through the human slaves. Soft, secret whispers in the dark. He did not bow. He did not scream. He said, "This will end." The branded human lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. He had long forgotten his name, long forgotten the sound of hope, but those words replayed in his mind again and again. This will end. The next day, the aliens tried again. They ordered the man to lie in the cold bed of a high-ranking lord, as all bedwarmers did. But when they forced him down, he turned his head and spat on the silk sheets. The alien lord hissed in rage, "You filthy creature!" It raised a whip, but the man only stared back, eyes blazing. "Do your worst," he said, "but I will never be your blanket." The whip lashed down, his back split open, blood spilling across the floor. But still, he did not beg. He did not crawl. He stood tall, chains clattering with each breath. The branded human watched with wide eyes. Every lash of the whip cut into him too, but with each strike, his own ember of hope grew brighter. He thought of all the years he had lived in silence, in obedience, in shame. Could it truly end? Could one man defy an empire? The guards dragged the rebel away again, furious. This time they promised to make an example of him. They chained him in the central courtyard where every human and alien could see. For hours they beat him. For hours they tried to break him. But he did not beg. He did not cry. He stared at the aliens with fire in his eyes. And in the silence between each blow, his voice carried across the courtyard. You think we are broken. You think we are weak. But humans are not heat for your cold nights. We are fire. And fire cannot be chained. The branded human's heart shook with every word. Around him other slaves stood straighter. For the first time in years they dared to look at their masters instead of the floor. The aliens sensed it too. The whispers spreading. The defiance growing. Fear flickered in their cruel eyes. One man's strength was beginning to infect all of them. That night the branded human could not sleep. The words echoed in his mind. We are fire. Fire cannot be chained. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he did not see himself as a slave. He saw himself standing beside the rebel, free, strong, alive. And somewhere in the darkness, a thought took root, a thought that could not be silenced anymore. Maybe the time of chains was ending. Seeds of rebellion. The courtyard had gone silent after the rebel's words. The aliens believed fear would return quickly, that the humans would forget his defiance the moment the whips cracked again. But they were wrong. Something had changed. That night, in the dark chambers where humans were kept like tools, whispers moved through the silence like sparks through dry grass. He said we are fire. He did not kneel. He did not break. The branded human lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For years, his heart had known only despair. But now, each whisper was like a flame flickering in the dark. The ember inside him glowed brighter. The next morning, small things began to happen. A slave girl refused to lower her eyes when an alien struck her. Another slave slowed his steps, no longer rushing to obey. These were tiny acts, almost invisible yet dangerous, because the aliens noticed. The masters hissed in irritation. Why do they resist now? Why do they hold their heads higher? The guards answered with more violence, but the change could not be beaten away. The fire was spreading. The branded human found himself staring at the rebel whenever he passed. The man's body was bruised, his back a map of scars, but his spirit was unbroken. And when his eyes met the branded humans, it felt like a silent message. Do not give in. Not anymore. One night, the branded human was ordered to the chamber of an alien lord. As he lay in silence, pressed against the cold skin, his eyes wandered to the jeweled dagger resting on a table. His heart raced. His hands twitched. For the first time in years, he thought about fighting back. He thought about grabbing the blade, about plunging it into the heart of the master. The thought terrified him, but it also thrilled him. He had forgotten what it felt like to want something other than survival. He did not take the dagger that night. But when he returned to the slave barracks, the rebel was waiting, sitting against the wall, chains still heavy around his wrists. His voice was low but steady. You looked at the knife, the rebel said. The branded human froze. How did you know? Because I would have done the same, the rebel whispered. Then he leaned closer, his voice sharp like steel. You feel it, don't you? The fire waking up inside. The branded human trembled. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to say no. But the truth pressed against his chest like thunder. He nodded. Good, the rebel said. That means you're ready. The branded human frowned. Ready for what? The rebel's eyes burned. For the beginning. The next day, the branded human found something hidden under his thin bedding, a shard of broken glass. His heart jumped. It was small, weak, but sharp enough to cut a chain, to cut a throat. He looked around, but no guard saw. The rebel passed him in silence. But when their eyes met, the message was clear. The rebellion had begun. That night, a group of slaves were forced to serve at a feast of alien lords. The air was thick with arrogance. The aliens laughed, ate, and mocked the humans like they were playthings. When one lord struck a human boy for moving too slowly, the branded human's hand clenched around the shard. Rage boiled inside him. The boy's cry echoed in his skull. Before he could move, the rebel spoke softly from across the room. Not yet. The branded human froze. His breath came heavy. He understood. They needed patience. Fire was useless if it burned too early. Days passed. Small acts of defiance grew. Humans began sharing stolen scraps of food. They began hiding tools, broken pieces of metal, sharp stones. The branded human helped quietly, slipping messages, passing whispers. The aliens noticed the unrest, but they did not yet see the full storm forming beneath their feet. They believed humans were weak, always weak. They had no idea that something powerful was waking. One night, as the branded human sat in silence, the rebel crawled closer. His voice was low, dangerous. "I stole this," he whispered, revealing a small alien key. Its surface glowed faintly with blue light. The branded human's eyes widened. "How?" The rebel smiled faintly. "Pain makes guards careless. They thought I was broken. They were wrong." The branded human touched the key with trembling fingers. For the first time in his life, he felt chains shaking, not just on his body, but in his mind. The rebel leaned close, his voice like fire in the dark. "The seeds are planted. Soon we rise. And when we rise together." The branded human's chest thumped hard. He could feel it now, not just in whispers, not just in dreams. It was real. Hope. That night, as he drifted into uneasy sleep, he imagined chains snapping. He imagined humans standing tall again. He imagined alien masters screaming as the fire of rebellion spread through their halls, and he knew deep in his bones that the day was coming soon. Fire in the dark, the nights had always been quiet in the alien fortress. Quiet, except for the distant hum of machines and the muffled cries of humans in their chambers. But this night was different. Beneath the silence, something moved. Something dangerous. The branded human sat in the barracks, staring at the shard of glass hidden under his bedding. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with anticipation. For years he had known only chains. Tonight, he would feel something else. The rebel crouched in the shadows, eyes burning with fire. The small alien key glowed faintly in his hand. He looked at the branded human and gave the slightest nod. It was time. One by one, humans stirred in the darkness. Quiet whispers carried through the barracks. Small blades were revealed. Sharpened bones, broken stones, stolen scraps of metal. Tools of survival turned into weapons. The branded human's chest thumped like a drum. He had dreamed of this moment but never believed it would come. Now, it was here. The door to the barracks creaked open. An alien guard entered, his whip coiled at his side. His eyes narrowed. Silent slaves. But the room was not silent. For the first time in years, humans did not lower their eyes. They looked at him, dozens of them, their faces hard, their fists clenched. The branded human rose to his feet. His chains rattled. His voice shook, but he spoke. "No more." The guard hissed, raising his whip. But before the lash could fall, the rebel stepped forward. His chain-wrapped fist struck the guard across the face with a crack that echoed like thunder. The alien collapsed, stunned. Silence broke. Chaos exploded. Humans surged forward. Their chains turned into weapons, their hands fueled by years of rage. They fell upon the guard like a storm, tearing him down, silencing his screams. Blood stained the stone floor, and in that moment, there was no turning back. The rebel held up the glowing key. "Tonight we are free," he whispered, his voice fierce. "Tonight fire burns." The branded human's heart raced. He felt alive in a way he had never felt before. He grabbed his shard of glass, slicing through the chain on his wrist. Pain flared, but freedom rushed into his chest like breath after drowning. The humans moved like shadows through the halls. Doors were unlocked, chains snapped. Prisoners stumbled into the corridors, eyes wide, realizing what was happening. Hope spread faster than any command could silence. But the aliens noticed. Alarms blared. The fortress shuddered with red light. Guards swarmed, weapons raised, fangs bared. The branded human froze as a squad blocked their path. The aliens sneered. "Back to your cages, vermin." Fear gripped him, but then he heard the rebel's voice behind him. Steady, certain. "No cages." "Not anymore." The humans charged. The battle was chaos. Whips cracked, energy rods burned, but humans did not fall back. They fought with desperation, with fury. The branded human slashed with his glass shard, striking down an alien guard. Blood splattered across his face, hot and shocking, but he did not stop. He was no longer a bedwarmer. He was a warrior. The rebels pushed forward, room by room, floor by floor. The fortress shook with the sounds of battle, chains breaking, guards screaming, humans roaring with newfound strength. In the central courtyard, the aliens tried to make an example of the rebel once more. They dragged him forward, beaten, bleeding, but still alive. They chained him to the post where he had once spoken his defiance. The alien commander hissed loudly for all to hear. "See how your fire dies. Watch him fall, and learn your place." The branded human pushed through the crowd, chest heaving, eyes burning. He saw the rebel's face, bloodied, broken, but smiling. And then the rebel shouted with a voice that shook the courtyard. "Rise now!" the humans roared. The sound was deafening, a wave of fury and hope crashing together. They surged forward, overwhelming the guards. The branded human tore at the chains, breaking them, pulling the rebel free. The commander raised a blade, but the branded human stepped in front, blocking the strike with his own body. Pain exploded through him, but he did not fall. He grabbed the commander's wrist, twisted, and drove the blade back into the alien's chest. The commander's scream echoed through the night, and then it fell silent. The courtyard burned with fire, torches stolen, banners torn, chains melted. The fortress was no longer a place of silence. It was alive with rebellion. The rebel stood tall, leaning on the branded human for support. His voice was hoarse but strong. "They thought we were nothing. They thought we were heat for their cold nights, but we are not heat." He raised his fist high. "We are fire." The humans shouted as one, their voices shaking the walls. The sound carried into the night, carried into the stars. And the branded human, for the first time since the day of his branding, felt something pure, something real. Freedom. The end of chains. The fortress burned. Smoke curled into the night sky, carrying with it the cries of battle and the sound of chains breaking. For years, silence had ruled these halls. Now silence was dead. The branded human stumbled through the courtyard, his chest bleeding from the commander's blade. But he did not stop. Pain no longer mattered. What mattered was the sight around him. Humans fighting back, aliens fleeing in panic. The Empire's pride was crumbling under the weight of defiance. Beside him, the rebel stood tall, though his body was broken. His wounds were deep, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. He shouted commands, rallying humans from every corner of the fortress. "Do not stop. Push forward. Tonight the chains fall forever." The humans surged like a wave. They fought. With bare hands, stolen rods, shattered chains turned into whips. Each strike carried years of rage, years of humiliation. The aliens who once sneered now screamed, their arrogance melting into fear. The branded human saw a guard raise a weapon against a child. His blood roared. He threw himself forward, slamming into the alien with a fury he did not know he possessed. They crashed into the stone wall, and the branded human drove his fist again and again until the guard no longer moved. The child stared up at him, wide-eyed, whispering, "Thank you." For the first time in years, he felt like a man again. Not a slave, not a tool, not a number. A man. But the Empire would not surrender easily. Reinforcements poured in, armored soldiers with heavy weapons. The humans froze for a moment as the alien army surrounded the courtyard. Energy rifles gleamed in the torchlight, The branded human's chest tightened. He knew what those weapons could do. The rebellion could die here, in fire and blood. Then the rebel's voice cut through the fear. Do not bow, do not run. If we fall as fire. The humans raised their makeshift weapons. Their voices rose louder than the rifles pointed at them. A chant echoed through the courtyard. We are fire, we are fire, we are fire. The alien commander of the reinforcements sneered. Burn, then. The rifles fired, but the humans charged. First, the branded human ran with the others, his body screaming in pain but his heart roaring louder. The courtyard exploded into chaos, blinding flashes of energy, the crack of whips, the screams of men and monsters. Yet the humans did not stop. Even when bodies fell, the others leapt over them, pushing forward, fueled by something greater than fear. The branded human tackled one soldier, grabbing his rifle, and turned it against the Empire. Blue light seared through alien armor, cutting down those who once laughed at human weakness. Around him, other slaves did the same, stealing weapons, turning the Empire's tools against them. The balance shifted, the reinforcements faltered, the rebels pressed harder, and soon, the courtyard belonged to the humans. When the last alien fell, silence returned, but it was not the silence of chains. It was the silence of victory. Humans stood together, bruised, bloodied, but unbroken. Their chains lay scattered across the ground like the shed skin of a dying beast. The rebel, leaning heavily on the branded human, raised his voice. It was weak, but it carried across the fortress. This place was built to break us, but tonight we broke it. Tonight we proved the truth. We were never bed warmers. We were never tools. We are fire, and fire cannot be chained. The humans roared, their voices echoing beyond the walls, into the night, into the stars. The branded human felt tears sting his eyes. He remembered the day he was branded. The pain, the shame, the silence. And now, standing in the ashes of the Empire's pride, he knew that brand meant nothing. It was only a scar. His true mark was freedom. But victory here was only the beginning. As dawn broke, the humans gathered in the courtyard, their faces lit by the rising sun. The rebel spoke again, his voice hoarse but unshaken. This fortress is only one chain. The Empire still holds many more. But they will hear what happened tonight. They will know we are not broken, and they will fear us. The branded human looked out at the horizon. For the first time in years, the sun felt warm. Not because he was forced to warm others, but because he was free to feel it for himself. He turned to the rebel, his voice low but steady. What do we do now? The rebel's eyes burned with fire. Now, he said, we spread the flame. And so it began. From that night forward, whispers of rebellion spread across alien worlds. Stories of humans rising, of chains snapping, of fire unchained. The branded human, once nothing but a body for warmth, walked into history not as a slave, but as a symbol. And the galaxy learned a truth it could never forget. Humans were not tools, not property, not weak. Humans were fire, and fire would consume the Empire.